Now that Moon Knight Season 1 has concluded and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is in theaters, I think it's a good time to return to my MCU tier ranking list. Last time I did a ranking of the first Phase 4 movies. Today I'm doing the first Phase 4 shows, so that's everything from Wandavision to Moon Knight. If you have not seen all these shows in their entirety, be warned, I'm not going to go too deep into stuff, but I may touch on some spoilers here and there along the way, so you have been warned. If you stick around to the end, you will also get a bonus ranking. So let's jump right into it. So let's start with the one that started it all, WandaVision. I think Marvel really came out the gate strong with this one. They did a lot of really cool stuff with the visuals, the story, things that we have not seen in the MCU up to this point. This was also a great place for Wanda Maximoff to really get her time to shine along with Vision, but this is more Wanda's deal. We also had the return of some familiar characters from other movies and the introduction of new ones like Agatha Harkness, spoiler alert, and Monica Rambeau, daughter of Maria Rambeau, and then we have the return of Jimmy Woo and Darcy. There's a lot of great elements here. Now, that all being said, I loved watching this show week to week. It was such a great experience watching with everybody all together. But the one thing that ruined it, besides all the weird fan theories, was that the finale was not that great. It was a kind of a letdown. A lot of the things they built up to leading to the final episode did not all pay off in a satisfying way. One of the biggest things for me is the whole Evan Peters of it all. That was not a fun fake out. Like, they've had fun fake outs in the MCU before. Like, I would consider the Mandarin a fun fake out, but this one was not a fun fake out because they knew we were expecting multiverse shenanigans because we had Doctor Strange coming up and Spider-Man No Way Home. So the fact they did that just kind of was like, are you serious? And then some other story threads that didn't totally make sense, but overall, I think the show is still a fun time, so I'm going to put it in A tier. Probably put it somewhere in the middle, like probably, yeah, I'll put it there for now. Again, I don't think I had a specific ranking within each tier. I think I just was winging it last time, so we're gonna keep doing that. Next up, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was an interesting one for me. I think, again, it was another one that had a lot of potential. This middle segment of the show, I think, was its strongest when they were getting into the stuff about Isaiah Bradley, what it means to have the shield, what it means to have a black Captain America, the stuff with John Walker, where he goes insane and kills somebody with Captain America's shield. That all was great, all that stuff. Something else that really stood out to me was Bucky and getting more into his psyche in this one, and seeing him working with Io to try and reverse the brainwashing that Hydra did on him. All that stuff was great. Zemo was a great addition. Now, the part where I think this started to fall apart was sort of the villains. The Flag Smashers, I think, had a good motivation, but I feel like the execution wasn't totally there. And then the whole Sharon Carter twist didn't totally add up either, because there's a lot they don't explain about how she decided to become an evil arms dealer. So overall, I thought this series was fine. I think they set up a lot of cool things for the future of the MCU, but I don't know if it's one I'd be revisiting a lot. So I will put it in lower B tier, I guess, or like middle B tier. Next up, Loki. This one was right up there with WandaVision. They went crazy with this one. They added so much to the MCU in this one. The visuals are crazy. They added a lot more context to kind of the power rankings of the MCU, because you are introduced to this place, the TVA, where they have the Infinity Stones as paperweights. And you just are introduced to so many grander characters, including He Who Remains in the finale. There's also great development for Loki, this variant of Loki. You have his relationship with Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, who's great. You have the relationship with Sylvie, another variant of himself. Say what you will about the relationship, but I think their dynamic worked for the most part. The visuals were crazy. The story was really good. And I think the cast absolutely killed it. Now, again, some people have mixed feelings about the finale. I personally didn't mind it. Honestly, I'd give this one a big pass because they're doing a season 2. If they weren't doing a season 2, then I'd be less forgiving of the finale that they were just sitting there talking to He Who Remains for most of the time. But because we know there's a season 2 coming, I will give them more of a pass because I know they're going to explain more as the show goes on. So, that all being said, I still think Loki deserved to be up in S tier because it is one of the best Disney Plus Marvel shows they've done so far. Next up, Marvel's What If. This is sort of the result of what happens in the finale in Loki, where they essentially unleash the multiverse. So we're seeing all these different stories, different or alternate versions of stories we've seen in the MCU. Overall, I thought this was an interesting step for Marvel. I think they did a lot of cool things here. Now, since this is an anthology series, every story is different, and so some stories I liked more than others. For me, some of the standouts were T'Challa as Star-Lord, If Doctor Strange Lost His Heart, the Zombies episode, and if the Avengers fell before they rose or something like that. Those were probably my favorite episodes. I also did like the team up at the end where they brought in those different characters from the multiverse and created the Guardians of the Multiverse. That's cool. Jeffrey Wright was great as the Watcher. All that stuff's good, but again, not all the stories quite landed. So I think overall, What If is probably, I'd say an A. Maybe put it upper B tier for now. I might switch it later, but for now I think upper B tier is fair. Okay, here we go. And next, Hawkeye. Now this one's gonna be controversial because the first 2 episodes were okay, but I think everything after the first 2 episodes were great. I love the relationship between Clint and Kate Bishop, and then also the kind of budding friendship that you see with Kate Bishop and Yelena, and then seeing Yelena face off against Clint for what happened to her sister. All that stuff was great. They do a great job of, again, giving Hawkeye more time to shine because he does not get that when he's alongside the Avengers. But then ironically, whenever he's not there, the Avengers get whooped. But I thought that stuff was great. And then, like I said, they brought back characters from other parts of the MCU that we thought were actually gone. So Kingpin comes back in this, spoiler alert again. Kingpin comes back in the series, and that was amazing. There's also the introduction of Echo, who we're getting a series of later, I think either this year or next year, but I'm excited for that. I actually really like the action scenes of this one, especially the ones in the episodes directed by Bert and Birdie. Those to me were like peak MCU action right there. Like that's up there with Shang-Chi for me. Like the scene when they were all fighting in the KB Toys, and then after that the car chase, that all was chef's kiss. So that being said, I know this is going to be controversial, but I actually might put it slightly above WandaVision because again, I think the finale and the wrap up to me was more satisfying in that show than in WandaVision. Again, my opinion might change, but for me, I definitely feel like I want to rewatch Hawkeye, especially around Christmas because it's a Christmas show, but I had a lot of fun with this one. And last but certainly not least, the one that ended most recently, Moon Knight. This one was such a breath of fresh air. Oscar Isaac was amazing as Mark Spector / Stephen Grant / Jake Lockley, spoiler alert. I thought he was amazing in the show. The story was really cool. Again, this opens the MCU up to so many more things. I like their trip to the afterlife and how they explain that in the MCU, there are different afterlives depending on what you believe in. That's like where you go. I think that's cool. The villain was interesting. Ethan Hawke as Harrow. I thought he was pretty menacing. And CGI was actually pretty good. This season overall actually wasn't super action heavy when you think about it. Like you don't see Moon Knight appear as much as other superhero shows, but I think to make up for that, they have a really strong story. Episode 5 especially is so heartbreaking, but it does so well at explaining how Mark Spector created Stephen Grant and then his other personalities and how he ended up working with Khonshu. All that stuff was really well done. I had a lot of fun on this show. Now, I am nervous about this one because at first I think they were saying it was a limited series, but now they're kind of on the fence about it. I do hope they get a season 2 because I do think the season finale ended sort of abruptly because it just ends with Stephen and Mark back in their bedroom locked up to the ankle, and then the end credit scene is Jake Lockley taking Harrow out of the hospital and all that stuff. And there's still some unanswered questions. So I do hope they get a season 2 or at least a sequel series. Maybe even they confirm that he's going to be in somebody else's show or movie at some point. But I do want to see more of this side of the MCU with the Egyptian mythology, Moon Knight, all these characters. I am interested in seeing more of it. So I hope there's more in the future. So that all being said, I do think this one is also S tier because it did, for the most part, stick the landing and create one nice contained story, but still really cool, and it does set up cool things for the MCU as a whole. All right, bonus. So if you stayed to the end, thank you. Since it's right here, you can see it on the screen. Let's talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is directed by Sam Raimi, his first Marvel movie in 15 years since Spider-Man 3, so I was really looking forward to this one. We also have Scarlet Witch in the mix with Doctor Strange. I'm not going to get too much into spoilers here because the movie just came out, even though everybody's already talking about spoilers and there's spoilers everywhere, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody if they have not seen it yet. So generally speaking, I will say I like this movie, but I did not love it. The story was interesting, but I don't think they quite reached the heights that I wanted them to in the multiverse. I also think Marvel didn't quite let Sam Raimi do as much as he wanted to. It definitely felt like he was kind of subdued. There are moments in the movie you can definitely see like, oh, that is definitely a Sam Raimi thing. But then there's other moments where it does kind of veer back into like what we know from the MCU. There are some really cool sequences, some really cool surprises, which were actually spoiled for me before I went to see the movie that sucked. But I think it's a fun time, but it's not one of the best movies in the MCU. And I have more thoughts on it, but I would have to do a spoiler video for that. So all that being said, I think this is probably like B tier. It's not the worst in MCU, but it's definitely not the best. So, what is your ranking for the MCU Phase 4 so far? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.